Tim Tszyu has finally caught the big fish and at the same time retired the big fish, Errol Spence Jr., announcing his retirement from the sport following that defeat to Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu gaining a lopsided and comprehensive victory, 118 to 110, 117 to 111, 117 to 111. Guys, I've just gotten back from the fights. A big day there at Kudos Bank Arena, which is now Afterpay Arena, but I still call it Kudos. A good showing for an event that, had their co-main and the one under the co-main cancelled, Stephen Fulton not showing up and Jamal Charlo not being allowed in the country. For what it was worth, it was a pretty good event. But we're here to talk about that main event, and we're here to talk about Tim Tszyu, what's next for him, and the fact that he's just retired Errol Spence Jr., a 147-pound great. All right, 147 pounds. When you talk about some of the best people that have done in that division, you'll definitely put Errol Spence's names in the conversation. Do I think he's number one? By far, no. But he's definitely in the conversation. Former unified champion. Up until today, his only defeat was to Bud Crawford. He had wins over Sean Porter, Mikey Garcia, Danny Garcia, Kell Brook, Udanis Ugas, right? Like, the guy was a very, very good 147-pounder. But let's be honest. Let us be honest. Errol Spence was not there today. Errol Spence did not show up today. Errol Spence came, got his paycheck, retired from the sport, had one final farewell retirement fight. And you know what? Credit to him. All right? He didn't really show up. He was a shadow of his former self. This wasn't the 147-pound monster. This is a guy that's been retired from the sport for 3 years. And last time out got handed a ass whooping from Bud Crawford. But credit to him. 160 pounds. 12 rounds, lost most of them, didn't get knocked out. And I think that goes a lot of credit to Errol Spence. And I think it's got a lot of questions about Tim Tszyu still. But we're going to talk about Errol Spence and we're going to talk about Tim Tszyu, his performance and what's next for him. Errol Spence, look, like I said, he was a shadow of his former self. It wasn't the Errol Spence that became that unified champion at welterweight. I think there's a few factors at play. After about 6 rounds, he looked fatigued. That could be two things. That could be not training properly. Or that could be just the simple fact that he was 3 years out of the ring and he took a fight over 12 rounds at 160 pounds, a division that he's not used to. And all of those factors could culminate and give us the result we got today. Do I think he trained properly for this fight? Yes, I do. I looked at him and he looked in shape. He looked like he had prepared for a fight. He wasn't overweight. He didn't miss weight. He didn't look tubby, anything like that, all right? He showed up. He was on weight, looked ready for the fight. But unfortunately, 3 years away from the ring, whilst the other guy is constantly in fights, in world title fights, and you try and fight at 160 pounds, all of those things just come together and it just doesn't end up being your day. But, Errol Spence, I think he came here today knowing that this was his last fight, regardless of the result. I think he knew what his level was, but he knew that there was an opportunity to come here, get a good payday, have one last fight, and then sail off into the sunset. And you know what? You might begrudge him for that. You might not. End of the day, you got to respect the hustle, whatever way he did it. He came here, got a paycheck. He didn't get knocked out, and I think that there's a lot of credit in that. For Tim Tszyu, though, Tim Tszyu is the focus point of this video. Tim Tszyu, look, you were in there, all right? You had the size advantage. When they got in the ring, you could tell Tim Tszyu was the bigger. They didn't look that different on the scales yesterday, but Tim Tszyu looked big in the ring today. Weight class that does, benefit you. Home ground advantage. On top of that, we've got this new Tim Tszyu that is sort of advertising himself as this new powerful, animal in the ring. 160 pounds, I feel more comfortable. The weight cut's easier. I've got that power now. I'm working with Jeff Fennick, more aggressive, more physicality. And although we saw a lot of that stuff today, and I do want to give credit to him, I'm going to give credit to him at the end of the video. I want to talk about the negatives first. You're doing all this, you're saying that you're a more powerful fighter at 160 pounds, but we've seen a one-sided affair against Nerja, a one-sided affair against Velasquez, and today a one-sided affair against Errol Spence Jr., who wasn't really there, was a little bit all over the place, lost balance a few times, was missing strikes by an absolute mile. And to be honest, it looked like Tim Tszyu really hurt him in that first round. It looked like he had really hurt Errol Spence in that first round. And we're looking again at 12 rounds, all the things sort of going in your way. And for some reason, once again, we're left there and saying, why wasn't Tim Tszyu able to secure a knockdown at least? Never mind a knockout, a knockdown. And this isn't sort of just to pin, all of the shame on this fight. It's almost culminating between the 3 fights. When you look at the level of Velasquez, when you look at the level of Nurja, when you look at the level of Errol Spence that came in today, the fact that we've seen those 3 fights, no knockouts and no knockdown even today when I think Errol Spence was there for the taking, it does make me question where this power that he believes he has is going or is gone, or, maybe it just doesn't transmit up to 160 pounds. Yes, you felt like shit at 154, but you had power at 154, or maybe it was just the people that you were knocking out. I don't know, but it does make me question why I wasn't able to find a little bit more success in there with Errol Spence, because I think Errol Spence was there for the taking. Errol Spence, he came in with the body shots. They weren't really working. He landed one good punch. From my viewing, Errol Spence landed one good punch, and that was a straight left in the second round. Apart from that, he didn't really trouble you with any power to the body or to the head. He wasn't overly quick. He tired after about 6 rounds. I just expected a little bit more from Tim. What I thought Tim did well today was I thought he was nice and aggressive. He was physical. He was able to push Errol back, and Errol can't fight on the back foot. We saw that against Bud. He doesn't like being bullied. 147 pounds, you're able to be that bully. Even if you don't have that one-hit power, your constant sort of action and activity keeps people going backwards. Whereas today, we didn't see that physicality and we didn't see that constant activity, because after about 4 or 5 rounds, it looked to me as though he was gassed. And I think that's where my criticism comes in on Tim, is why he wasn't able to find a bit more success. I would have loved to have seen, I was there cheering for Tim. All right, everybody knows that he was the one that I was backing. Right, he's the one that I wanted to win. Did I think he was going to be able to do it if Errol Spence turned up full might? No, I didn't. And I said that in my video. I said, if Errol Spence turns up like he did in 2018, Tim loses. But that's a big but. That's a big if. And I thought Tim today, like I said, he was nice and physical. He was quick. He looked good. All right, he looks good in this weight compared to what he was trying to shrink himself down to 154. And I think he will have success in this division, but I think he had an opponent there that was definitely for the taking. And for whatever reason, once again, he didn't take him. And that's my biggest question for the fight. For Tim, he did state that he's going to continue at 160 pounds and that he wants to be a middleweight world champion, eyeing people like Erislandy Lara. Erislandy Lara is a very crafty fighter. Erislandy Lara is a very good fighter. All right, the last time I saw Lara take on an Australian, he knocked the fuck out of Michael Zarafa, if you remember that fight 2 years ago or so. Erislandy Lara is a very good fighter, but he is getting up there in age, all right? But he's a very good mover. He's a very tough person to hit, and he can definitely beat you on points. But I think there is an opportunity there. If Tim's able to secure that fight, which I don't think he deserves that fight yet. I don't think he deserves that fight. But if he does get that fight, because money does talk, yeah, I don't count him out at all. I think Erislandy Lara, like I said, at his age, at some point it just goes. At some point, it just goes, and Tim Tszyu might just get lucky enough on the night. Tim Tszyu might just be better on the night. Today, I saw the typical Tim Tszyu. I saw a physical guy, a guy that wants to be aggressive. I saw the punch speed, the technical. Now, it's like he is a very good boxer, and it sounds like I'm dissing the shit out of him. I'm not. He's got every single staple piece that made him a world champion. All right, he's still that good technical boxer. In fact, I actually think he boxed quite well today. But that mean streak, that spite, that power just doesn't seem to be coming to the forefront. And that's where my questions sort of still hold today. I think he should have knocked down Errol today, if not knocked him out. I think we were all surprised. I think most people coming into this fight says this is going to go one of 2 ways. It's either going to be an Errol knockout or a Tim knockout. And we didn't really see any of that. We saw a very good punch in the first round. We saw a very good punch in the second round. And then a cagey affair to the end. A cagey affair that no doubt Tim Tszyu won. Tim was by far the better fighter tonight. But once again, we're sort of left wondering why he couldn't find the finish. I do think Tim fought well tonight. This was the biggest fight in his eyes of his career. For me, a world title will always trump a name, especially the situation around this name. But for Tim, this was his glorious moment. This is the one that he was hunting, and he got that glorious moment, and you can't downplay that. This was a tough test. Lots of people were tipping Errol Spence. Errol Spence was the favorite coming into this fight, and Tim Tszyu showed up and got a very commanding victory over him. All right? No ifs, buts, or maybes. That's what happened. Errol Spence, in many people's eyes, was the favorite. He was the betting odds favorite, and Tim Tszyu turned up today. Comprehensive victory. Yes, for my liking, I would have liked to have seen him more, but that's being greedy. That's me wanting to see him succeed. He caught his big fish. At the end of the day, he caught his big fish. Errol Spence, he retires, rolls off into the sunset, good paycheck to end the career, and it's now moving forward for Tim Tszyu. And like I said, I don't think he deserves a world title next. I want to see him take on. For me, what I will say about Tim is, although today I wasn't overly impressed in his performance, if he can back this win up with a fight against a top middleweight contender, I'm not even saying a champion, a contender, somebody at the top of the bill, somebody that's in the top 5 of multiple governing agencies. I can't give you a name right now, but I'm sure there is somebody there for the taking. There is a fight there to be made. I want you to take that fight and I want you to impress in that fight. I want you to have that comprehensive unanimous decision against that guy, or a knockout against that guy. And then it's like, all right, Tim Tszyu at this weight is the real deal. Tim Tszyu at this weight is going to become a 2-weight world champion. And I think that's what I'm waiting to see. And that's what I want to see. As good as today's win is for Tim, all right, the resume looks good. That's a great name to have on your bill. But there will always be if, buts, and maybes around that name, whereas you beat a top contender, you beat another world champion middleweight. There is no if, buts, or maybes. You've beaten a guy that is in his prime right now and is at the top of his game. Guys, I'd love to hear what you guys think. I have uploaded the press conferences from Tim Tszyu and Errol Spence up on the channel. It was a great day. All right. And I do want to thank everybody that watches these videos, because you give me the opportunity to go to these events. Like today, got to go there. All right. Media pass, all access, got to watch the fights, interview the fighters. I got to meet Errol Spence after the fight, which was great for me. I'm a big Errol Spence fan. So I do want to thank everybody that watches these videos. I made today Anthony Joshua's video that came out early this morning. Anthony Joshua getting the victory. I am hoping to film tonight a video about Hamza Shiraz and whatever that performance was. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel, that you like the video. Let me know, am I too harsh? Maybe you got a different view of it on TV than what I did at the arena. Obviously, at the arena, you do get very different looks from what you will see on TV. If you've been to a live fight, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe Tim looks very, very good on TV, and maybe I'm just fucking blind. But for me, I feel like I've been overly critical, and I don't want to be overly critical, but I think Tim Tszyu, where he wants to go and what I think he has the ability to achieve, I think once again we were left wanting in today's fight. And that's probably my biggest takeaway. Guys, like, subscribe. I'm out of here. See ya.